Okay, so in this video, what I want to talk about is justifications for getting into boxing. And this video is really aimed at a certain group of people. And I wasn't originally going to do this video, but I've been getting enough emails and concerns and questions that I thought maybe I should do a video about it. There's a certain kind of guy out there, older than me. He's usually in his 40s or his 50s. And he grew up in the heyday of boxing. Now, it's debatable what the heyday of boxing is, but for a lot of people, it's the Ali era leading into the Ray Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, Roberto Duran kind of era, this sort of late 70s, early 80s. And this is at the time when boxing was at its peak. Young guys now are growing up watching MMA or even Thai boxing or K1. You know, guys of this time were watching boxing. That's what it was all about. If you were going to fight, if you were going to prove yourself, it was going to be in the boxing ring. But for whatever reason, you know, either just thinking that it wasn't the right thing for you, or career, or other sports, or family life, you didn't get involved in boxing. But because this is what you grew up on, and this is what you love, there's still an itch for you to get out there and give it a try. And I'm going to tell you why I think you should. Now, this can also apply to the guy who's 23 and is wondering, is it too late to get into boxing? No, it's not, because there are a lot of benefits to be had. But the big concern or question that I get is about guys thinking that, am I going to get a lot of brain damage, or am I going to really get myself injured and permanently damaged and get myself into trouble? And I think that's because you're looking at Muhammad Ali as the poster child for brain damage when it comes to boxing. Now, it's kind of a bad reputation that it's not even really the media, but it's just Muhammad Ali and who he was and how he's at the forefront gives everybody that picture. But in most cases, you won't be going 15 rounds with Joe Frazier for 3 fights. You won't be going, you know, X many rounds with George Foreman. You won't be fighting as a pro, making millions of dollars late into your career. Most guys are going to get out there. They're going to be using headgear with face guards, 16-ounce padded gloves. You won't be taking left hooks from Joe Frazier. You'll be taking left hooks from Joe Smith. And it's not going to have anywhere even close to the same impact that something Ali would face, or even the average pro boxer, even a pro boxer who has 5-6 fights or 50 amateur fights. It's not going to be the same thing. So what I'm saying is that if you want to get involved in boxing, you can. You can get involved. You can have your cake and eat it too. I personally think that if you are a generally sound body, that you don't have any critical injuries like in your neck or your spine or your lower back, that you can get out there and make the most of this and get a lot of benefit from it without any brain damage or any long-term repercussions. If you have your doubts about getting into boxing, there are about 4 reasons why I think you shouldn't get involved. Boxing is actually a relatively easy sport to learn. So it's not like tennis or golf where you're going to have a lot of frustrations. It's not like hockey where you got to learn how to skate first, and then you got to hold the stick and learn how to stick handle and get your balance down. It's not like a sport where, you know, you have to do something entirely new or entirely foreign. Maybe you want to get involved in cricket, then you have to time this ball coming down off the bat. A lot of sports are very complicated, but boxing, boxing almost comes natural to a lot of people. Once you get the stance down, get the wraps and the gloves on, show somebody how to throw a jab, show somebody how to throw a right hand, I guarantee you're going to hear the whap on the pads, on the bag, probably day one. Saying that it's easy to learn doesn't mean that it's easy to be really good. Usually your level of depth comes from how much time and work you can put in. So the guy who's, you know, got the time and effort and even the youth on his side and is able to put in the work, this is the guy that you're going to see the difference between a right hand that is like this and a right hand that's like this. Overall, for boxing, there are about 8 basic punches. You know, you got to learn your stance, you got to learn how to move about 4 basic different directions, how to punch off of moving your feet. Then you got to know how to block those 8 basic punches. And if you go to any boxing gym, the coach should be able to teach you all of these things. So within about a month or even a few weeks, you should be able to learn the fundamentals of boxing and then you just got to go out there and work. So that's plus number one. Plus number two, there aren't really, from my experience, there aren't really any serious injuries involved in boxing. You might get a bruised rib, you might get a broken septum in your nose or a broken nose, you might hurt your hands, hurt your knuckles, metacarpals, you might sprain your elbow a bit or hyperextend your elbow, but you're not going to run into knee injuries, hip injuries, you're not going to get body checked into the boards and have your neck cranked. For the most part, unlike sports like hockey or football or skiing or whatever, your whole body isn't going, X many miles per hour where you're going to crash into something. And so this is what makes boxing a relatively safe sport. As long as your body is well structured to begin with, the chance of a serious injury is quite slim, provided that you have the right equipment and your boxing guys around your level. So as far as injuries concerned, from what I've read, the studies show that in amateur boxing, there are much less injuries in amateur boxing than there are in most other sports that you'd see in your typical high school program. Number three, boxing is one of these sports where you can make a lot of progress and improvement on your own. And that's what I like about it, is that I don't have to depend on a partner, I don't have to book a court, I don't have to book equipment, I don't have to pay huge fees. If I really want to make progress and I can't even get out to the gym, I can just get some hand weights on, get on my gloves and tracksuit and hat, and I can go out to the park and shadow box in the park. Or I can even do stairs in a building, or I can even shadow box and do burpees in my own apartment. And you can see that as long as you know what your level is and you're putting in the work, you can make a lot of progress just working on your own. And that's even without the equipment. Then there will be times in between sparring where you're going to go into the gym, you're going to work the bags, work on your shadow box, work on your techniques, you're going to work with your coach on the pad work, and you will make a lot of progress without having to depend on any special setups. So that's one thing that I really like about boxing, is it really is pretty much a cheap and convenient sport, and the only thing that you really need to get good is the time and dedication. Now, the last thing that I think that's really important about boxing is that, unlike a lot of sports, boxing still is combat. I mean, there are rules and regulations, more rules than Thai boxing, more rules than MMA. There are, you're only working with your hands and striking, but still, there's an element of combat that calls upon us to prove ourselves, or to show to ourselves that we can do it, that we can handle ourselves in a situation. And boxing is one of those sports that gives you that feeling. It cuts it. Unlike tennis or golf or hockey or whatever, you can go out there and you can have a good time. Baseball, you can go out there and have a good time, but it's not going to give you that same feeling like boxing, where you faced your opponent down, you sparred them, you've survived, you've dominated, and you've executed your will. Because boxing is combat, there still is a whole primal element to it that satisfies us in a different way. And so usually this is the reason why people get into it, is because they have to scratch that itch. That's kind of how my old coach used to say, you got the itch. It means you want to get in there, you want to get busy, you got the itch. And so for a lot of guys, they still have that itch, or maybe it's sort of reignited. If you are on the fence about whether to get involved in boxing, or you were involved in it as a youngster and maybe you had a layoff and you're wondering whether you should do it again, these are the reasons that I think you should jump back in. There's only one thing that I think you need to be careful of, and this is probably really the main downside to it. The only real downside to boxing is when you get thrown in there to spar with a sparring partner that's way above your level, that's taking liberties on your head. And so this is really pretty much the only thing that you got to watch out for. And even at that, it depends on your level. You got to watch out for it happening on a consistent basis. Not really because it's going to do you in, but because it's going to kill your motivation. You're going to want to quit. And really, if you are somebody that you already know you're not looking to become world champion or whatever, there's no shame in expressing to your coach, look, don't set me up in sparring to go against a beast, or if you're going to be setting me up, make sure this guy is working with me, working at my level. Most good guys that you spar with, that's who you want to spar with, the better guys, because they have control and they can work at your level. There's nothing worse than going up against a guy with 1 or 2 fights who still has a lot to prove and is going to come and tee off on your head. So that would be the only thing I'd say you have to watch out for, and there's no shame in talking to your coach about that or making that public knowledge, that you're here to get in some work, to learn the sport, to get in better shape, and you're really looking to have some sparring that's going to be at your level, and you don't mind if once you get better that your sparring partners take it up from there. So this is my overview for guys who may be on the fence about getting into boxing or getting back into boxing. And I hope that you make the decision to do it. Just take it day by day and get into it slowly and get the vibe. And I'm pretty sure that from there, if you take it piece by piece, you're going to find that getting back into boxing or get into boxing was the right thing to do. All right, peace.